I think one of the best insights I can give you with regards to culture is make your culture attainable for every employee that you have in your company. It doesn't matter if you're the CFO in the company, CEO in the company, or if you're somebody in a role that's doing packaging or shipping for you, wherever it is, they need to understand what the culture is about and make sure that your guiding principles, your fundamentals are lived out, that you're letting your yes be yes, letting your no be no, and being transparent about what those fundamentals really mean to you and your business. And before they even join your company, they should understand exactly who you are and that you're living out those culture components to it, those fundamentals, because you know that an employee that would potentially come to you, they want to know during the interview process that it's exactly the way you explained it at the very beginning.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Marketing Blender Show. I'm your host, Daisy McCarty, one of our fractional chief marketing officers here at Blender. And today I have Trey Thompson, president of Star Industries, here with me in the studio. So Star Industries is local here in DFW and recently recognized as a great place to work. And I have to say, I believe it. I've met and worked with the team for quite a while now.
Thank you.
And I never see a frowning face. I always see people who are excited to show up and who participate and collaborate well together. Yeah. So welcome to the show, Trey.
Thank you for having me. Yeah,
absolutely. So I want to dive into what does it take to build a high-performing manufacturing organization? Now, some of these are going to be true, best practices across any kind of organization, but specifically for manufacturing, it's not remote work. This is people showing up
right.
and working together in a physical environment. And I think some people have lost the skill sets to do that over
right.
the last few years, frankly. So I'd love to dive into how your organization works. So first of all, talk to me about the size of your current team and how it's grown over the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, so the current size is about 60 employees. About 20 would be in the office, and then we have just under 40 manufacturing employees. We're currently operating on one shift. 6 years ago, the whole team size was about 32 when we started. So it's grown a little bit, close to double, but just underneath it, yeah.
All right, excellent. So we like to throw around terms like high performing.
Yeah.
But we don't always define them. So I'd love to hear your definition of what is a high-performing team. What are you tracking to say, yes, we're reaching the level of excellence that we need to?
Yeah, almost in every department, there's really good KPIs to understand how well you're doing in your department, and we have certain goals for what those departments are doing. So it's at that level, it's really easy for an employee to understand how they're contributing to the overall success of the team. But without a doubt, it's made up of people. And people are the number one assets in your business. They're the things that appreciate if you invest in them and invest in your team. So we tend to think of those as how do you excel at the most high performing sports team? It's very, very similar to how you do that in the business. And a lot of it's people and the communication of those people together.
Excellent. So obviously people, the right people to help you grow your company, right. How do you find and hire them? Because that's something that I hear from manufacturers all the time. I can't get enough people. I can't find the right people.
Yeah, first of all, define who you are. I think most potential employees that come to you, whether they're coming to you through Indeed or however they're finding you on your social platforms, they really want to know what you're about. And the more that you can display and live out your values to them before they ever hire on, you're going to try to find the best match. And it's so important during that interview process to understand what that person is all about. But even more importantly is to take the time for them to understand what your culture is about. So the expectations are very clear when they show up day one, that there was no surprise. They know exactly what's expected of them, but in turn, how does the company pour back into them? And it becomes mutual at that point. And I think a lot of companies don't do that. They don't think about taking the time and the effort during the recruiting process to do that. And, or if they do, are they really espousing and living out those values every day? And so one of the most important things I want to hear from a new employee after they've been there for 90 days is, this is exactly what I expected it to be. And you lived out what you told me, and what it is exactly right. Man, that just says we've done the right job. And it's not necessarily a match for every potential employee, right? hey, this is who we are. And if you don't like that, it's okay. We'd rather know that now.
Right.
But most times you'll hear, I don't ever hear this from a potential employer. And it's just nice and refreshing to be able for somebody to be able to tell me exactly who they are. And then consistently live that out for that employee is fantastic.
For sure. I'm glad you brought up social, because I have a little rant to go on around that. So it's incredibly important, if you are concerned about finding and hiring the right people for your organization, to pay attention to employer branding. So your social media strategy should include showcasing how your company actually works. What's it like to be part of the team? How can you live out and act out your core values in a way it's visible, and it's something that people can look at and make the right assumptions about your organization, because you want to be attracting people who are excited to work with your company based on the reality of how your company works, and not, flowery job descriptions or we're the best company that you could work for based on, the hope that you're going to bring people. And you need to be demonstrating it, and social media is one of the best places to do that. So there's a research from Deloitte and the Manufacturing Institute that 45% of supply chain executives say they've turned down taking on additional work and additional customers because they don't have the capacity for it, due to not having enough workers to fill the demand. And there are going to be over 2 million unfilled manufacturing jobs by 2030. Why is it so hard to fill manufacturing jobs?
I think the industry, first of all, hasn't done a good enough job of showing why it's a really good potential career for somebody. And so overall, we're trying to market that better. We're trying to tell people better about, why this could be a potentially good career for you. It pays well. It really does. And it's still a skill set that we need desperately in the United States to continue to build upon. So we're starting to see some younger generations that maybe see that college isn't a great route for them, especially at the expense of college. And so we're seeing some more vocational routes that people are taking. And so we, as an industry, need to make sure that we continue to enhance that and show people that this is a really good opportunity to bring people in. Now, that doesn't necessarily say that one manufacturing employer is the same as the other.
Right.
And so how do you set yourself apart to be somewhere that somebody really wants to come to work, provide for their family, and that they can see long-term security and what their role would be with that company, and an opportunity for enhancement? You got to show them that. And you don't want to treat somebody just like a number. You need to know them. You need to know what makes them tick, what their family is about, know them by name, and be there for them when they might have challenging times too. And you hope the same is true for when you have challenging times as a team and as an employer. And I think if you live that out, I think people will find you and they really want to come work for a company like that.
I agree. And I think there's something that's fulfilling about making things. My very first job in my early 20s was a manufacturing production environment. And you can show up, you can get your equipment together, and you can make the thing that's going to end up, in the customer's home or in a workspace or a hotel, wherever it's going to end up. And you're like, I made something. At the end of the day, and I work in marketing now, so it's mostly intangibles and it's digital. But there was a lot of satisfaction in being able to show up and put in a day's work and say, and this is the output. So
great point. I do that. So anytime I have an opportunity to drive around and see our product on a construction site, oh my gosh, it's so much fun. I was doing that downtown Fort Worth, leaving Arlington, coming into town last week. And there was one of our products up on a job site, holding a piece of glass, putting it on one of the downtown buildings. I, almost had a wreck pulling over trying to get to this guy.
Right.
And they freak out whenever
Safety first.
when I go on the job site, I don't look like a common worker showing up and I'm all of a sudden taking a bunch of pictures. They might think I'm OSHA for all it matters, right? But I want to be able to go back and show our team, hey, look at what you're doing and how it's making a difference. And there it is, we catch them in the wild. That's that little tagline. That's
Attachments in the wild.
Attachments in the wild.
Right.
It's kind of fun.
For sure. Well, they're helping build the world.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's a very exciting thing. So as you're bringing in new people, how do you approach the onboarding and training so you get your new team members up to speed as fast as possible?
That's something that we've invested a lot of time in. Cynthia, who is in charge of HR for us, does a fantastic job, first of all, of being the bullhorn of our company. She is the one that's out really talking to people about why this is a really good company to want to come work for. And when they come in-house, she's responsible for helping that onboarding process. It takes pretty much a full day now for us to onboard them. And we've really involved, obviously, the culture side of it to make sure that they have the app. We've got an internal app for our culture piece of it. How do they engage with that app? And then simple things. People want to know where the restroom is, and they want to know how to clock in correctly, right? How to assimilate in being part of the team. And so as Cynthia finishes up, she introduces a guy named Bill Mao. He's been there forever. He's just one of our stewards of the business. And so we spend a lot of time in safety. So we want to make sure that they understand the job safety analysis, that they understand exactly what their role is and what kind of PPE is required for their job. First and foremost, we want them going home every night to their family with all 10 fingers, all 10 toes, is what we say, right? And nothing else matters if we can't provide a safe environment. So we spend a lot of time talking about that. And then finally, the team lead. Is the team lead going to welcome them in to that group? Because nobody wants to be left out of that group and just wait to see if they survive. It's really up to that team lead to engage that new individual, make sure that they're assimilated part of that group. They find a friend within that team, and then we're there to help. As long as that person's willing to learn and see how to get better and understand, become familiar with how we build our products or we do our process, then we're going to engage with them, and we're going to make sure that we help teach them along the way too.
I like that. So you've mentioned culture a few times. Talk to me about what your company values are and how you communicate and collaborate around those to make it part of everyday life at Star.
That's an exciting topic for us. We love it. Back in, it was in the fall of 2019 when we introduced our 30 fundamentals, and we call it the Star Way. So as a management team, we developed this. Now, Star at that time had been in business for 39 years. Star had a culture, but it wasn't defined. Mm-hmm. And so when we were saying this employee is not doing the right things, well, what are the right things? Have we really told that employee what the right things are to do in our business? And we hadn't. It's just kind of what we thought was matter of fact that everybody should know. Well, that's not
show up and act right.
Yeah. What does that mean, right? So in different businesses, I have developed guiding principles, and there might be 4 or 5 different guiding principles, the overarching themes of the business. And those worked really well. But one thing that we took differently into this business, and it was a system that I adopted from a guy named David Friedman, and culture-wise, is to really create tangible daily fundamentals that people can understand. And so there's not a short list. There's 30 of them, right? And so every week, we just practice one of those fundamentals. And so at every meeting, every huddle we have, somebody takes a couple of minutes and talks about the fundamental of the week. And so this week is be transparent. And so what does that mean? Be transparent is all about share information. Don't hoard information. And if you made a mistake, come and tell it's okay to come and say something about it. Hey, I made a mistake. I'm going to be transparent about this. I'm going to make sure that we get the boat back in the right direction. And we expect that of our employees. The very first one we have is be a fanatic about safety. So as we go back around to the first one of the week, we want to be a fanatic about safety, and we talk about that at every one of our meetings. So we don't expect any of our employees to memorize these. But over time, it just becomes part of the common language.
Are you a CEO of a business-to-business company? Maybe you're a sales leader or a salesperson, or maybe you're in business-to-business marketing. Well, if so, I wrote a book for you, and it's called Corporate Caffeine. Business-to-business marketing is different, but there are certain predictable, fundamental principles that will help you unleash your organizational potential and fill your pipeline sustainably. So you can find my book on Audible, on Amazon, on barnesandnoble.com, or any of your favorite retailers. Hope you enjoy it, and I'd love to hear your feedback.
So manufacturing, it can be a high stakes, fast paced environment. Things have to get done in the right order, on time. One bottleneck can throw everything off. So people have to be on their game. They can't just show up and phone it in. How do you keep the team engaged on the job?
First of all, find people that like to be competitive. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's certain people that just aren't competitive, and there's others that really like competition. Not only maybe against another department or something like that, but they just they want to see the scoreboard and they want to know how they rank on the scoreboard. And so we don't really do that as individuals, but we do that as teams, and we find the people that really engage with that. And then we make sure that they can see that. They want to know visually, how did we do today? Did we hit the attainment in welding that we expected to hit? And we make sure we display that, and we work with them to be able to help them hit that attainment number.
So beyond the people, and we've talked about that, what are the processes, tools, and technologies that help support that high performance?
I would say engagement is probably one of the biggest things. And so the culture-wise app that we use, so every employee understands really what does it mean, what's the DNA of our business, what are those fundamentals that they know if they're doing these particular things, they're going to be part of a really high-performing team. So we use that. The culture app is a huge part of our daily business that we have. And then we have visual tool boards out on the shop floor. So all of our displays that we have in each one of our departments, they can engage with, they see exactly the next thing they're supposed to work on. The other complaint that we had really early on was, do they have the right tools to do the job with regards to prints? Do they have access to the safety equipment? Do they know which items require a piece of safety equipment? So we want to make that really easy to find. And the display boards do a lot of that for us now. And so we continue to enhance that. And if a problem comes up, whether it be, we record near misses. So we want to record, okay, if there's a potential opportunity for a safety accident, we want to record that, right? And we not only want to record it, we all want to see where the trends are and what can we do about those potential trends. And so we discover some stuff. There was 2 years ago, there was a safety accident that happened that a gentleman got injured, and we put some safety tools in place, and we changed the technology to make sure everybody knew, use that safety tool. Now that we have it, make sure you know the next time this product comes up, use this safety tool every time. And so visual displays, people working in a fast-paced environment, they want really simple, straightforward visual displays that give them the cue at the right time. So we try to create that. I
like how what you just said about recording near misses goes back to the value of transparency.
Right.
Because in so many manufacturing environments, the most important thing is, X number of days since the last accident. So let's make sure that,
right.
we're not talking about anything that might have happened. We're just making sure this is the only thing that matters, is no actual accidents. But being transparent, saying, hey, that was a close call. That gives you the ability to actually improve your safety practices and not just, take the safety metrics and fiddle with them a little bit.
Right. Leading indicators, right? And near misses ultimately determine whether you're going to have a safety accident. This is probably just a matter of when. And so the more of those things that you can control up front, and it really makes for engagement with everybody. It's not the safety manager's job. It's all of our jobs to be safe. And so we want to do everything we can to create that environment that they understand, all of us, myself included. We want to go find that. We want to be proactive to find that near miss opportunity, remove it from the process. It could be a broken pallet out in the aisleway. That's a tripping hazard. Get rid of it, right? Record that near miss. We want to see that type of engagement, so we're proactive.
Yes, I remember when I was touring the facility a few weeks ago, and you're like, here's the lines, here's the safety lines, walk here, don't walk there. So it's built into the environment.
Right.
So that with the proper training, everybody knows where they are and if what they're engaging in is safe or not.
Right.
And it really does, it starts with decisions at the leadership level. So what do you do to help develop your leaders in order for them to be the most effective at developing the teams?
So that's a good question. First of all, it does start with what kind of environment I'm creating at the top. And the management team, and it's made up of all the different disciplines in the business, make up that management team. And we've got to engage well with each other first. First and foremost, if we're not engaging well with each other and understanding how to solve the business problems and develop the strategy for the business, it's not going to disseminate well down to the individual teams. And so we spend a lot of time. I've recruited a couple of different people that have joined that team over this last year, that as you develop that team out, you create new dynamics, new people, new personalities. And so we spend a lot of time working through that. I think one of the most fun ways to do that is using 5 dysfunctions of a team. Patrick Lencioni's book I go back to over and over again. And it's a simple book, but it's a true thing about a true statement about how do you develop any type of team. And one of the basic things is creating trust. Well, how do you create trust? You do it through relationship, you do it through communication, you do it through healthy conflict. And Patrick Lencioni, he wrote that book back in early 2000, I believe, just does a fantastic job of talking about how those teams work together. But that's where it starts.
Fantastic. So are there specific things that you do to foster that collaboration between departments? So you've got your leadership team that's all creating that alignment. How does that trickle down so that if there's someone in the shipping department, there's someone on the shop floor, there's someone in the office, how do they collaborate together, and how do you make that happen?
Yeah, several different forms. There's some guys at the business that bought me a t-shirt not too long ago that says, "I love meetings." And so I'm all about huddles. And I don't really call them meetings, but we do a lot of huddles. I would rather not do those across teams if at all possible. I like being in front of people. And so we have a lot of stand-up huddles that take 10, 15 minutes. Every department has one of those in the mornings. And so they're meeting as a team, quickly making decisions, seeing the KPIs for their business, their area, and seeing how things need to be tweaked. And then that rolls up to what we have as a management meeting as well. So it was funny. We had a record month in March, revenue, and we did it in 21 days, which typically takes, a longer month would be 23 days. We did it in 21 days. And I asked the team that. This is what we call Team Polaris. This is our manufacturing team leads. And that's a huddle that it starts at 8 o'clock every morning. And said, guys, okay, what made this go so well? What happened that y'all reflect back on for a minute? We don't ever take time to celebrate these things, so reflect back on this. What went so well? And they named off about 8 or 10 things that happened, but still the number one thing was it's that synergy amongst that group of guys. And they communicate very well throughout the day. They have to share resources back and forth. They're all internal customers to each other in some form or fashion. So all day long, they're communicating back and forth, and they have conflict. They have to work through things, but they would tell you their communication and what they're willing to do for each other it's outstanding. It's made our environment, and it just is, a guy that got to be a part of that. I just stand back and enjoy watching those teams just really excel and hit something they never thought that they potentially could hit. And it's usually about the communication.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
So I'd like to bring up another thing, because this is a big controversy right now. Performance reviews. Oh, they're dead. Oh, you should do them. You shouldn't do them. So talk to me about performance management. How do you give people feedback without damaging morale? How do you address areas where people need to improve?
Should be daily, I would say. It doesn't need to wait. I mean, if you're waiting to the end of the year to do the formal annual evaluation, you have totally missed the boat. And so we really try to do that on a really a daily basis. And so if something needs to be tweaked or coached with an individual, we really want to handle that pretty quick. I was doing that yesterday evening. There was something that came up. An employee that's been with us for 4 years recently moved from a shop environment into an office role. We promoted from within. It's a great fit. He's still learning a lot. But I was able to coach him through a potential, challenge that he had, and he kind of missed something, but it was something new to what we're doing. I want to give him that feedback immediately and walk him through it, but how do I handle that, right? How am I going to approach that with him? Am I going to do it by shaking my finger at him, or am I going to try to really coach through, say, hey, here it was, I'm going to be transparent. So let's call it what it is. Here's what we want to do differently next time. And then we started looking at ways to enhance how does it become a better reminder. And so there were some things that we're going to put in the process that makes it a little bit easier. And that'll help him be successful. And so he didn't see me standing over him, just calling out his mistake. He sees me, hopefully, shouldering by him to go to try to solve a longer term solution.
For sure.
So
I think it kind of reminds me of when you were talking about developing your scheduling system for the shop floor. It's not, let's print out our plan for everything we're going to do this month, because that's not how things work.
Right.
It's that, what should I work on now? What should I work on next? And it's the same thing with that performance. If there's something that they can improve, why wouldn't they want to know? Why wouldn't they want to work on it right then and never have to wonder, how am I doing? Because the feedback is positive and it's ongoing. So yeah, I think there's definitely a time for hey, let's celebrate milestones with an employee, but not, well, let's set up the performance review session where we tell you everything that you did wrong. We'll go back the last 6-12 months and bring up stuff that's not even relevant anymore.
At the time. Yeah.
I would agree with that. So the culture that you're building, talk to me about how it's being built around accountability, ownership, and continuous improvement. Like, give me an example of something you've seen from one of your team members lately that you were like, yep, they're stepping up and they're owning their place.
So this is a live conversation happening right now in our business. It's an incredible conversation. I don't think I've ever seen it. So we have a weld team that is 11 strong today on our first shift, and it's the best performing weld team for that size that I've ever seen. The amount of work that they can get done in a particular day is incredible. Well, we've added a new member to that team, and so we were increasing the attainment, the expectation for them to get out the work that they were supposed to produce every day, and they hit it almost immediately. And so which is unusual because you would think a new employee would take a little time to acclimate. And the supervisor, the production supervisor for that area, felt like, he goes, you know what? I feel like there's just a whole nother gear with this team. And he was right. But some of the systems that we had changed, we became from more of a make-to-order environment to more of a make-to-stock environment, which changes the batch sizes. And then the other enhancement that we've done is we have no turnover in that department. Really in all of our manufacturing departments, we don't have any turnover right now because we've got such a strong team. But specifically in that department, we've had no turnover. And so they've all become more familiar with how to build the product. So that supervisor went to that group and said, all right, I feel like there's a whole nother gear with this. We're not trying to squeeze every, juice out of the turnip, but at the same time, if there's a whole nother gear in this, are our standards for our product times off? Do we have the opportunity to reduce those? And so he kind of went at it from almost like a moral side of it, but he's saying back to those leads in that department, okay, help me understand where we're off. Because what matters more than anything is we want that schedule just to have integrity and accuracy. So if we're high or we're low, we want it to be accurate, either side. And so they're working on that right now. And we're finding probably about a 20% gain off of our standard. But those guys have to trust the supervisor, that he has their best interest in mind. So there's some things that we've done, all of their, weld cells, the capital equipment we've put in there, the cranes we've put in there, some of the fixtures and automation. They know we're doing our part to help take care of them, and we got their back. And at the same time, they've got to trust us that we're not going to use this as a negative. We're actually going to do this to enhance the business around it. So that's a live conversation that's going on with that group. And we're seeing this trust really play out. What we've said for the last couple of years as we've developed this culture, we're having to live it out right now. And they've got to understand we're not going to use that against them. We're going to use this to enhance the common goal that we're trying to both produce.
Right. And I think there's a difference in mindset between productivity means how do I get my people to work harder versus productivity means how do I make things easier. So I'm enabling my employees to do more.
Right. Yeah.
I've definitely been in both kinds of environments and I can tell you which one I prefer.
Yeah.
So looking back over the last few years and what you've learned through leading a high performing team, what's a couple of takeaways that you would give to other manufacturing leaders?
Man, when you know that you've got a superstar team, reward them. Find an opportunity to reward them. And that's not only a monetary reward, but it's also just I would even say things like this. Anytime I can be a cheerleader for my team and tell other people about what we're doing really well, not because of me. It's not me. I just happen to be there, but it's about what that group is doing. So we want to be that megaphone. And I think any employer should do that. Any leader should do that. They should really be thinking about their team and how do you tell other people about them. And just like our kids, they want to hear when they're doing a good job. We should be doing the same thing. That positive reinforcement, the opportunity, we call it kudos in our business, but the opportunity to give them a shout out, I think is really important as well. So
Speaking of shout outs,
Yeah.
you do this for your employees and they do it for you. So recently, Star Industries was recognized as a great place to work.
Yeah.
So you have that designation for your organization. Talk to me about how that reflects on the way employees feel about Star, because it's based on they go to your employees and they say, tell me the truth about
Right.
what it's like to work here. So give me the skinny on that.
Yeah, that was fun. It was a fun process. You're exposing yourself a little bit when you do that with these surveys, and what your employees are going to say about you. We felt like we had a good culture, but it really kind of came through in some of the metrics too. So one of the metrics that really stuck out was we were talking about the new employee. 98% of our staff felt like when they came to our company, they were welcomed into our company. That says a lot. So we want to make sure that they're not treated like a number, they're treated like an individual. And that was a huge metric to be able to have. And most people feel like that they're doing a good job and that the company sees them for what they are and doing a good job. Most of our employees, and this is a big deal to us, we really share with our employees. The ownership really wants to make sure that everybody wins. And so we try to make that an effort. That's a monetary component of that, but we also do some other just kind of really fun stuff. And so that all came out through the survey, and it was exciting to be awarded that. It was not a pat on the back for myself or for the management team. It was really just for them to see what they're building, what our entire team is building. Whether you work in the shop or you work in the office, we really want to make that just a very fun place to work, but you're doing good work for a good cause, and you're seeing yourself part of a larger mission than just what's in it for yourself. And that's what the survey really told us. And so it was a proud moment to be able to share that with everybody that we received that award.
Right. And a great place to work is made up of great people. So definitely a reflection on the type of people that are part of that team.
Right.
So final question, in the spirit of continuous improvement, what's your next big initiative to take your team to the next level?
We've got a couple of different things that we're working on. One of the objectives this year was to survey ourselves for the great place to work, but we've got a whole nother gear we believe around enhancing our education and our training. And there's an opportunity there, whether you're working as an account manager or you're working in the shop. How do we do it safer, better, faster? There's no doubt about that, with highest quality. And so ergonomics around those things, we have a lot of plans around that to help train individuals to be safer, but also have more ergonomics associated with weld fixtures, positioners, that type of stuff. So we're spending some money there. But also in regards to, if you're an account manager or you're in a sales role, how do I help you get the best information at the right time so you can ultimately service the client better, you can be better, more confident with what you're doing. So there's a whole training component that's coming along. And one of the areas that we're doing that is we're spending a lot of time developing out our understanding of what M365 really does. Office 365 is now M365. That tool set's a lot. There's a lot there. And so we're looking at all those processes and things that we've always done this particular way. We're really looking at some of the technology that's there in front of us to see how do we better enhance that. And there's some things the technology can do for you so you can spend your time making better decisions. And so if we can take away some of those steps, so we're seeing that both in the manufacturing environment, but also in the office environment.
Fantastic. Very exciting. Thanks for coming on the show,
Yeah,
Trey.
thanks for having
Great
me.
to have you here. And we're glad that all our viewers are here today as well. So one thought to leave you with, we do have episodes about employer branding and talent branding. So if you really do have a great company and you need to let future team members know that they should come work for you, please check out those episodes. It's going to give you a lot of great information. We look forward to seeing you next time. Onward and upward.